Welcome to No Quit, the podcast where real business isn't filtered. I'm Jeff Leshishaire, founder of Fleur de Lis Law and Title. I've built an 8-figure company, but not without setbacks, burnouts, and moments that nearly broke me. This podcast is where I tell the truth about what it really takes to grow something that lasts. The wins, the losses, and the grit in between. If you're in it for more than just the highlight reel, you're in the right place. The stories shared on this podcast are based on real experiences, but details have been changed or generalized to protect client confidentiality. This podcast is for informational purposes only and does not constitute legal advice. Listening to this podcast does not create an attorney-client relationship. Welcome to another episode of the No Quit podcast. Today we have Erika Hemphill, builder, designer, podcaster, life coach. I mean, what else? What am I missing there? What else are you into?
Mom, friends, Christian, I don't know. We'll just tackle
baseball
them all
fan.
Yeah, exactly.
So tell us a little bit about yourself for those that don't know, like what all, kind of your main gig and kind of what else you're into these days.
So I love the no quit. I think that I've told you that
Thanks.
because I think that with me, for sure, with everything that you just said, I am a local business owner here in Hammond, Louisiana, for all of our podcasters listening out there. But besides just being a local builder here, I always wanted to have that no quit mentality of like, how do I get bigger? Because we have so many builders in our area. And so I just kept pressing, like, what does my community need? What do they need out of me? Oh, we need a residential builder. Perfect. I'll do that. Oh, we need commercial builders. Okay, I'll do that. Oh, my clients want a designer to help them so they don't have to pick out 20 different things or 100 different things in their builds. So how can I do that? Okay, perfect. We'll add that to the portfolio. Then COVID happened and interest rates went up. So I had to split my portfolio. I needed to be doing remodeling. So we added that. And I'm a mom and I have a 14-year-old and I have a 9-year-old. So I love that no quit name for your podcast, because I believe that any entrepreneur that's going to be in this industry, it has to be about no quit, figure it out.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that. I think too, when I got into it, it had a little bit of a negative connotation at first. It came from a place for me where it was like, down. We had a split in the company. The economy was down. I had to sort of feel like I was needing to reinvent myself or pack it in. There were some days where I was like, let's just pack it in. But, what I found as we've had guests on the show, it's been, I try to tell them, like, what I'm looking for is how you overcame that adversity, even when it was like a good thing. And in your case, I think, COVID sure was a tough time, but I think you've also had a level of success as well. Being on the cabin show and things like that, where it's like, there's been times where I'm sure it's like the floodgates have kind of opened. That's adversity in the same way. And you had to find a way to either grow into it and get bigger and better and more efficient, right? Or, am I going to trim back and be just this one thing?
So I think a lot of people don't know the beginning of the story, and you do. And so I want your audience to know that you were a big part of where I am today. I came to Jeff many moons ago and I said, I want to start a construction company. And I think he laughed at me a little bit, not like you didn't believe in me, but you're like, oh, wow, she's really going to do this. And that came at a no quit time too, because I was a female in a male dominated industry. And when I first opened up, I got so many no's because I didn't have the building background that I needed. And there were lots of little angels and warriors that stood behind me when I needed them the most. You looking at my contracts, overseeing that for me, all of those things that I needed a little bit of help with to get me to offering that to my clients. Same thing with vendors. I will forever be grateful to Bob Gabriel for when I walked into his office and I said, I need a line of credit to build a house. And he was like, are you a builder? Like, he had only seen me in Gabriel's as a consumer. And so he was another angel. There was another
Well, vendor. Not to interrupt you, but on that point, I will say that was one thing I did want to mention. It was easy for me to support you when you kind of had this idea to become a builder, because we'd seen you as that consumer and you were very involved and learned the process and just didn't take the answers that you're being given from subs or whoever it might be. And so it was like an easy decision for me to you this is something you should go and do. I say decision, I meant way of supporting you, because you were so involved on your build processes. You were not like 99% of the consumers that
Yeah,
we
and I
have.
guess I should say that too. I had built houses
Yeah.
either by myself or with a builder
Mm-hmm.
before, and I had leaned on y'all for all of my closing, my title, questions that I had in reference to like, what should this contract look like? I was young.
Yeah. But if you'd asked me, I would have expected that. Like if you'd asked me at that time, I would have thought it was premeditated. The way you went through that process, and I know the decision came later, but it almost seemed like to me you were trying to learn the game in a way a lot of folks that are just building their house don't.
Right.
So it was almost like you always had the intention of becoming a builder because your questions and your involvement on your own homes being built was just so much more deeply involved than I guess most of the people that we have coming through here.
Some people probably might call that nosy or just like OCD controlling. And anybody that knows me, I am that way with everything, anything and everything, line items, contracts, subcontractors, designs on my houses. But I do agree that I think that has set me up very nicely. But I also always have a lot of questions. Like, it doesn't matter. I never want to be the smartest person in the room. I always want to learn something from someone. And I truly believe that is part of that no quit that I love. I'm telling you, I'm going to say that throughout this whole podcast today because it really resonates with me because I didn't want to just sit for an answer that, yes, could I be a builder? Anybody could go take a test and be a builder. Yes.
Yeah.
But are you going to be the builder or are you going to be the contractor that really walks your clients through that and answers the hard questions? Like when you do something wrong or there is a mistake, because believe me, still after almost 10 years, there are still mistakes that are made. But I do know that you have to have the right people in your corner and you have to be able to trust them.
Yeah.
So the people that I built my team around just in the construction world was very important to me. Every subcontractor that works for me currently has been with me since the very beginning. There hasn't been another title company that I've worked for or worked with. Jeff in his office has closed every single one of my loans, whether that's remodeling, whether that's a HELOC refi, whether that's a closing. And that speaks to the loyalty.
I mean, we appreciate it, but I think to the point, correct me if I'm wrong from your perspective, but I think my business is the same way. There are people that, we've been doing this work for 20 years now. But I think what's important about that, what the attribute to hone in on there is that you didn't cut someone off at the first mistake or discrepancy or miscommunication. And I think what that does is that down the road, you may have had a dozen discrepancies with their, who knows, your sheetrock guy, your trim guy, whatever. But like now y'all are a fine-tuned machine, right? They know what to expect from you. You know what to expect from them. You know how to communicate because that's going to be different with other people. And now you've got a good thing going as opposed to, I haven't run into a mistake with this guy just yet. But what happens when you do? Because the next build could be the one. And you need to know that you can talk to this guy and y'all can get together and figure it out as opposed to like, okay, when the shit hits the fan, we're not going to know what to do.
So you mentioned that I'm a coach too. So my biggest thing, and it always has been, and it goes back to what you were just saying, is communication. Nothing is ever going to go perfect, ever. In life, in business, anything. My number one goal with anyone that I work with, whether that's coaching, whether that's in the construction industry, is that if there is a mistake or if there's something that I don't understand, I just want to have questions and I want them to feel comfortable enough to come and ask me questions or to tell me when there was a mistake. There are so many people out there that when something happens and something goes wrong, our natural reaction is to holler and to be upset and
shut down
and then just not communicate about it at all. That doesn't fix anything. And so I learned really quick because when I was younger and just starting, it was like, you mess this up. You need to do this. You need to take care of this. And it was out of anger. Now I always look at things like, okay, what system failed us at this point? Like where was the breakdown? And was it me? Was it our vendor? Was it a communication? Was it our staff? And then it's bringing it back to the table and having open conversation saying, okay, this needs to be rewrote or this needs to be fixed because you're right. We don't just cut our vendors off or people that we worked with because there's an error. Something happened. And typically, if we're honest with ourselves, it was probably an internal system that was a failure. Not just, did we get the correct information? Did we get the correct information from our client? Did we get your staff the information that you guys needed for closing or for, whatever the scenario is? We're just always out there asking questions and trying to figure out how we make the system better. That's how we get better and that's how we grow.
I mean, it can be tough at first too. I found that to be the case with our business, and I try to tell the younger business owners that I see, like when they talk about the mistakes or a business failing in the first year, I think oftentimes people are just looking at those issues in the wrong way, and it's hard until you've gone through it and see that you're going to survive it. But when an issue pops up, it's almost a good thing. Every time that we have had something go south in our business, and I'm able to catch it early enough to get involved and speak to that individual, all it really ends up doing in the end is opening the doors of communication a little bit more. And now they feel comfortable enough to bring up other things to me that might be off or that they just have questions on. And that then allows me to hone in our process and make it better. And when you're not open to that client, or you're closed off or get offended or whatever it might be, like you stop yourself from growing in that way. And that's, again, back to the way it was, when we first started working with you. I can remember being in the line for the Jungle Cruise at Disney and taking a call from you. And it was the only call I took that came in, from an outside client like that. Because I knew if I didn't, you were going to be relentless. You're going to call back at some other point anyway. But I thought too, it's just like my buddy Beezy that we, work with. Sometimes the staff get a little bit turned off or concerned or offended when issues are raised. But now they get the idea with you, with Beezy, and with others that, like, by the time we sit at the table, all the issues are taken care of.
Yep.
It's perfect, right? And that can only come about by y'all talking to us or us talking to our clients that way. So, for any, new business owner that's out there, I think if you're open to that, Todd DeLon brought that up when he was on the show too. He spent the first, 6 months or something like that, sitting at the front at the register at the counter, asking the clientele coming in, what can we do to make this place better? Right? If you're open to that, you're going to be highly successful.
I think so many business owners are afraid to get feedback because, let's be real, most people don't like to have negative feedback. You can go on my Facebook right now. I have the most negative review on Facebook. I think it's the only one, and it's from someone that we didn't even work for. I let it sit there. I don't care.
How did you give a review if you didn't work?
It was a homeowner that lived next to a piece of property that we were working on. And again, they don't know what the regulations are. They don't know what the setbacks are. They don't know what we've been approved for, where we can put a dumpster, all these things. And so they don't know that there's a noise ordinance. And if I want to start shingling a roof at 8 a.m. and I'm sorry that you work nights, am I sorry? Yes. But that doesn't mean that I have to follow what your
when you're going to do it in the middle of the night, you're not allowed to.
Right. So, and I use that as an example, and people are like, Erika, don't you think you should ask Facebook to take it down? And look, I'm not going to lie. I've wanted to take it down because it's very not true is the part of it. But you know what? I've had multiple people that have called me that when they called to ask about, questions about their contractors, they've seen the review. Well, you have a negative review. Answer for it. If you can be truthful and answer for that, then most of the time, like you said, it's easier to communicate because I'm not scared of the review. I'm not scared of the feedback that we get from our clients.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's great. Sometimes it's not. But was it not great because of maybe something that the client did? I can't always appease, but I can always have a conversation.
I feel like too, the world is catching on a little bit, right? We went through this run over the last, 5 years, especially, where social media, videos and podcasts like this especially have allowed so many people to sort of fake it to some degree. And if you go out there and you see nothing but positive reviews, like that's a trigger right there. Like, I mean, who's 100% perfect? No one. So when you have a negative one out there, you get to answer for it, and they get to see how you're going to be accountable and how you might handle a tough situation with them if they run across it in their build. But also too that, okay, they got 4 or 5 negative reviews out of 300 or something like that.
Right.
Okay, well, they're not hiding these things from us. Whereas a lot of people out there, it's so easy today to go out there and, do a podcast or do some social media clips, throw a party, whatever it might be, market yourself as an expert, and you're really not. I don't know if you saw the story. I don't know how old it is, but wasn't there a couple just recently, like in Texas? Did you see that? I just saw it last night. I don't know how old it is again, but there was a couple out there trying to put themselves out there as the next, Joanna Gaines kind of thing. And they took over like $5 million from clients to build or refurbish homes. And it's just, it's atrocious. Like it's not only not done well, it's not close to code. It is dangerous. And, they're being sued and, the license are taken. It turns out the guy who was putting himself out there as an architect and designer is neither, he just says he was. And so many people saw the videos and believed it and gave $50,000, $100,000 deposits to go build them homes. And now they're having to come back in and take over on these projects. But this world made it easy, right?
It is. Look, social media and marketing in general is something that every business needs. And like so many marketing people are like, oh, you have to be authentic. You have to be your true self. Okay. How many times have you actually gotten on Facebook and somebody's told their like horror stories of being a business owner? That is very few, far in between. They might tell a little snip of what it is. And look, I'm guilty of it. And you can go on my social media and there's very few like really raw things. I have a friend of mine, Les Brennan. He owns it's Mountain High landscaping, and it's up north. And this year for 2026 is all about real, authentic. And he talked about it at the first of the year that it's not just going to be the great clips this year. It's going to be, he talked about owing like over $100,000 worth of taxes and like what that meant to his cash flow. Like he preemptive, like these are all the things that he's going to talk about this year. And when I heard that, I was like, wow, that's real, authentic marketing. That's how people are going to say, well, maybe I don't want to do business with him, or do I do want to do business with him because he overcame that?
Yeah.
Because a lot of it in entrepreneurship, in my opinion, is what I call the roller coaster. There's like this really high climb and you get all that. And then it's like the exhilaration of like, it's about to fall. And then the big, deep valleys, and who's going to be the one to overcome that. And that's
when you
really
can't
hard.
see them coming, and sort of back to the whole like honing your process too. I mean, a real story of mine that I tell people quite often, certainly my staff here, but primarily the people that come in the office. A lot of people have a problem giving me their license. They don't keep it on them, or it's in the car, or I've closed here before. Why do you need a copy of my license? All these things. And I always tell them, like, look, when I first opened, like I was open maybe 2 months. We had a sale go on. The seller drove to the closing with the buyer. So they get out the same car because, I could see them getting out. They were real chummy. I thought they were friends and been friends for a long time. Seller's going to sell a piece of vacant land to this buyer. This is way back in 2011. So they're like, hey, want to write up a purchase agreement? And I'm sitting here and I'm like, well, look, I can write a purchase agreement. You could sign, you can come back and we can sign the deed later on. But, I have time. I just opened. I was like, I can run the title right now. If you give me some information, I can draft the deed right now. I'm trying to be quick and efficient. So we knock it out, all the information checked out, whatever the case may be. We go to closing, we sign all the docs. My staff was supposed to be the one that when people come in, they get licenses of everybody that comes in. I'm like, everybody, agents, whoever, just to be safe, get it all the time. Well, they didn't in this case. And it turns out that the seller wasn't actually the seller. And my buyer paid like $28,000 for a piece of land that the seller didn't really own. They don't find this out for a month later when they're out there clearing the land. By that point, the seller who showed up at my office has already, been on a drug-induced binge and spent all the money, and they're already in jail at the point by the time we find out. And the buyer comes in and they're like, what do we do about this? And I'm like, okay, well, what can I do? It's on me. I thought you knew them. I also thought my staff had taken IDs when they came in. Neither one of those being the case, I felt like it was my responsibility. And at the time we just opened, I was like, look, I can't stroke a check for, $28,000, $30,000 right now. I was like, but I can tell you this, I can find a way to give you $10,000 every month. And I'll never forget, they came in to get that last check. Great people. The poor wife is crying because she's so upset about this happening to me, even though it wasn't their fault either. But I was like, look, it's the right thing to do. It was on us. We're supposed to be checking IDs. And I'll never forget, she says, I'm just so glad. I thought I was going to call my son-in-law, he works for the FBI. And I'm like,
right,
you could have said that at the beginning.
Right, exactly.
But I did the right thing. But what it allowed us to do is we changed up our procedure and we doubled it up now. And so we get the driver's license earlier on in the process, either text or scanned and emailed to us, as well as at the table, so that we can make certain we are dealing with who we're supposed to be dealing with. And I hate that. My wife hates me telling that story because it's a mistake on our part, but it says two things to me. Number one, that'll never happen again because we've changed our process and we've doubled it up now. But two, like, I want people to know, like, we're going to be accountable.
Right.
If it's our mistake, like, you're not going to have to sue me to get me to do what I'm supposed to do.
That's right.
Right.
It's a core value.
Yeah. It's like my dad tells me, he's like, that's your great grandfather's name on the wall. Remember that. It's
Right.
not yours. And so I want people to know it. It's hard to talk about that kind of story to some degree. It was certainly hard to write those checks early on in my career where that was every dime I was making basically to make those payments. But we are accountable. We are going to do the right thing, and that'll never happen again. And there's 1,000,001 of those. So you can go to somebody who's faking it, and they might look great on social media, whatever it might be. But I can promise you, they're going to get smacked in the face one day with something.
And look, it's not just that. Look, I'll open a wound, and then I'll share a good story to make me feel better because the wound still hurts. So we had built a house for a client, and our surveyor had went out there and surveyed it and laid it all out. And you're going to remember this because you remember how Jeff said he answered the phone when he was in Disney World? Like, he answers the phone because typically if I'm calling him, he knows, oh, wow, it's something.
It's a big deal.
It's a big deal because I don't call if I don't need him. And when they poured the driveway, my former decided to move the form board.
It's on his own.
On his own. And it wasn't a big deal whenever we finished the house. My clients had lived there for almost a year. It wasn't a big deal. It was a big deal whenever the property next door got sold and they came out to do their survey.
Mm-hmm.
The way that the property was angled, it angled really funny for the driveway. And so my former thought that it just looked funny and that my surveyor had made a mistake and didn't pick up the phone and call anybody or call Garland or ask anybody.
Meanwhile, you're following the property line.
That's right. And he wanted to follow what he thought was a straight line. And when he did, now granted, it wasn't that much over.
Yeah.
And I remember calling him being like, hey, do you think that we can offer this new property owner, like, can we purchase this piece of property? Can we, like, this little sliver, lot line revision, whatever we can do to make it right? Because we didn't want to have to rip up the driveway.
Yeah.
Well, come to find out, this particular property owner was not having it. And he just kept saying, if your contractor doesn't come fix this, or if you don't move this driveway, then I'm going to sue you. It's the same concept. We took care of the driveway. Mm-hmm. We had them rip it up. We had them come out there and redo it. And then what's really funny is that that particular property owner that was giving us all this hard time didn't build. He actually sold the property like not even 6 months after we did all that. And then he sold it to someone that I knew.
Oh, wow.
And if you really want, my old assistant married my AC guy, and it was them, and they bought it. And she was part of that whole transaction of having to rip it up. So she knew the whole story. So, but at the end of the day, it's the same thing. I want my clients to know that if there's a problem or something comes up, that I'm going to be the one to take care of it. It doesn't always mean that I'm 100% going to take care of it, but we're going to find a way to make it right. Because at the end of the day, you're right. Our name and our community knows who we are and how we interact in our community and with our clients.
It's the difference between saying and doing too, right? It always makes me think of that scene in Tommy Boy. It's like, well, he has a guarantee on the box. Like, well, because he's got a guaranteed piece of shit, right? I mean, he's just selling you something.
That's right.
Is he going to be there to stand behind the work? And this is a case where people, I find, maybe I'm just being overly optimistic, but if it were me, I wouldn't look at that scenario and be like, oh, there's an instance where Erika messed up. I would look at it and say, everybody's going to mess up at some point. What are they going to do about it when the shit hits the fan? Mm-hmm. And that person who knows that story or hears that story from you can trust in the fact that you're going to stand behind your work and do the right thing. When everybody else, it's a gamble because they have no evidence to back it up. They probably have a story out there. Maybe they've even done what they're supposed to, but they're not telling that story.
Right.
They're not being real. They're not being accountable. And I think these days, it's the only thing we got left because, I can make myself look like whatever I want with AI these days.
Oh my goodness.
Right?
And business is freaking hard. Like,
it's real work.
I have my podcast and I have business owners come on and, I try to like dive into too about like, why is it so hard? Mm-hmm. And I analyze that a lot, like, especially through coaching businesses. I have, 7 one-on-one clients that I coach in business coaching, business and life coaching. And it's not just your industry. It's not just our industry. It's every industry that's out there, is that it's hard. And why are we so adamant about tearing each other down, not helping promote? Everybody can win. There's enough space in this world for every realtor, every Walgreens, every CVS, every title to win.
I think it's partly because there's some animosity created by watching someone not do it the right way. And maybe at times we're assuming and maybe we're not correct. But if you really know the work and you know the business of the industry that you're in, you can tell the BSers and the ones that are real. And it's hard to watch someone who's fake be successful. As you get older, it's almost fun because, maybe it's the testosterone lowering in my body or whatever, but I have the patience now to sit back and watch it and wait for the show. But man, I mean, coming up, it was tough because, in our world, and everybody has their own thing, but as an attorney for title, if we come across a judgment, right, we've got to clear that in order to put the new bank or new property owner in first lien position, whatever it might be. And for the longest time, I kept running across guys who didn't do this work as a specialization, and they would miss judgments. And in our world, it actually helped them because then they were the only guy who could close the new transaction. Because if I closed it and this guy had missed a judgment, I've got to collect, from the current owner for a judgment not paid off on the previous owner.
Right.
And so the older attorney can just kind of like, oh, I'll close over it again. And so it was almost a way of getting more work by screwing it up. And I was always so bitter about that because I'm like, here it is. The guy's not even specializing in this world. And he's getting work that I can't do now because of the mistake, right? Or because they, faked what they seem to know and really don't. So I think that causes people to kind of want to tear it down a little bit. I know it had with me, and that's a little bit of it. It's so easy to fake your way through it that, the people that really know the industry, it's hard to watch. Oh, you closed with so-and-so? Oh my God. Like, wait till you refinance and you sell in 3 to 5 years, because I know how much time we perfect on our process and how much time we spend on doing the work the right way. And I know how they don't. And it's like,
it's the same thing in
can't
the
tell
construction
somebody.
world. No,
Oh,
but
yeah,
it's the
I'm
same
sure.
thing in the construction world. Like, we'll have clients that have, prime example, right now we're dealing with that. After COVID, we had interest rates that were really, really low. So a lot of people aren't wanting to get rid of those. So what do you think they're doing? They're taking the equity in their home and they're wanting to refi and pull that money out and do some remodeling so that they can stay, or they want to do an addition. And I walk through some of these houses that have only been built a year or two, or maybe even 5 years. And I look at the craftsmanship and I think to myself, they sold you on something that is not a good product. And here I am, and you're asking me to redo it. And my favorite one is like tile or flooring, trim work. But then yet, whenever you put your price out there, for instance, my price out there in comparison to some of my competitors, they're like, you're so much higher. Right. But I promise you're not going to have me come back. I specialize in what I do. My subcontractors specialize in what they do. They're not handymen that are going out there and doing trim.
How do they take that information when you tell them it was done wrong, though? How well does that go over?
Well, I do finesse it a little bit better than that. Not sometimes, the majority of the time, if I'm doing the walkthrough, I would typically say something along the lines like, our subcontractors would not have performed it like this, or we would not have done it like this, or I would have suggested it be done like this, whether that be for warranty work purposes or for whatnot. One thing that is troublesome to me in the construction world is that we have a lot of contractors that have been maybe like, let's see, how do I want to say this? They have done smaller projects, let's say some smaller remodels, and then they've gotten into a little bit bigger remodels. And when I say a smaller remodel, I'm talking about $10,000 or $15,000. We don't even do remodels like that.
Sheetrock in a room, not a roof.
Right. And now all of a sudden, because of our guidelines and our restrictions that are being put in place, there's a lot more red tape.
Yeah.
They're having to go get their license, or their permitting process has changed. Anything over $50,000, you should be requiring to get a GC on your project. If not, they don't have the insurance to cover you if there's something
goes
wrong.
Yeah.
It goes back to that specialization, right? So one thing that we see is that they want me to do the work because they see our marketing, they see our pictures, they see our projects, they see what we're doing. But then when they see the price, they don't like the price. And then they can go to Joe Blow down the street and he'll do it for way less. But he doesn't have the insurance. He doesn't have the liability that I have. He
And the
doesn't
work
have
is not comparison.
That's right. It's
of
not.
apples to apples,
And
yeah.
so we try to explain that. Do we lose jobs because of that? Yes. But I also have learned that during our systems and processes that we put in play, we're asking a lot more questions on the front end on like, what all are you looking for? And not to be a car salesman, but I need to know what your budget is, because if your budget is only $20,000, there's no need for me to even come out there and come look at it. That is not my realm of service. You're not my avatar. And so when I look at, you can get on social media, you can put up that you are a contractor, that you can do remodeling, that you can do any of these things. But what have you actually done, and what work are you actually producing?
It reminds me of a part of that same story with that couple in Texas or whatever. I thought it was funny. They interviewed one of the homeowners who'd gotten the bad product, and you could see he'd based his entire decision on the fact that they were so much cheaper. Mm-hmm. In the interview, they were like, well, how bad was the house? He's going on and on. He's like, yeah, we even had a family friend that's a contractor come out. And I was like, right there. Like, how does that guy feel? Like, you chose this other people. We're the family friend. I'm the contractor. You didn't choose me. I mean, I just thought it was hilarious because I deal with that stuff, and I'm sure you do too. But, we unfortunately have a limited amount of time. I did want to touch on the coaching, though, before I let you go here. In particular, I just have one question right off the bat before we kind of get into more what you're doing there. I'm just curious. You said you have 7 people you're one-on-one coaching right now.
Yeah.
How many times do you have to kind of talk these new business owners like off the ledge? Like, how many people are you having to say, don't quit here, fight through it? Like, how does that, what's the ratio? Is it all 7? I mean,
so when
I'm
they
just
first,
curious.
So the hardest thing about coaching is exactly what we've been talking about. There are so many people out there that are just so full of crap.
Yeah.
Okay.
Even your clients that are coming in, you're like,
well, because they see so many people claim to be a coach. Look, you can go and go get a plaque on the wall that says you're a coach. First of all, just for the record, I don't have a plaque that says I'm a coach. I am a coach because I am passionate about coaching and helping businesses
and I think people were
succeed.
approaching you about those things anyway. So
about systems and processes, like, because they've known me to be so OCD in my construction company, they're like, okay, well, can you help me write these? Almost like a bolt on, like, can I hire you to write these for my company? And the more that I started tampering with that idea, I was like, well, it really starts before the systems. It really starts before that. And so as far as talking them off the wall or off the edge of like just shutting down and not doing it, I always ask them, like, your mindset and your why have to be bigger than anything that you can dream of. And if that's not big enough, then you're going to shut the doors and you're going to quit long before you ever need to hire a coach.
Yeah.
What I see a lot of is that typically businesses, especially locally here, I have some one-on-one clients that are locally here, and no one in this community would know that I am their coach. I'm very quiet and sure about that their privacy of their company is their own.
Kept confidential.
And that's right, because I always tell everybody the facade of a company can look really good on the outside, and it needs a whole shit ton of remodeling on the inside. And it's not that they are bad people. It's not that they are bad businesses. It's just that most people get into business and they don't know what they're doing.
Where can you learn that until you've been in it?
Right. You can go take any business class that you want at any university, and it doesn't tell you all the fires that you're going to have to deal with. And so it really started out that, number one, I had my own coach. I realized very soon after I was around 3 years into my company, to the construction company. And I was like, okay, if I'm going to get bigger, if I'm going to get better, I need somebody holding me accountable, because I'm the CEO, I'm the founder of this company. Nobody tells me what to do, but somebody needs to just hold me accountable. It's not that I couldn't do the work. It's I needed somebody getting on a call with me and saying, did you freaking do what you said you were going to do? Did you go to the gym today? And it's not just business. I am a business coach. I am a personal coach. I am a life coach. Sometimes I get on the call with some of my clients and it's like, okay, I don't want to talk business today. I want to talk about my 14-year-old son that has an attitude today, So obviously I want to be there as their mentor. If I can help them and assist them in any way to not make the same mistakes that I have or that I have been coached not to make, that's what I want for them.
I think the accountability thing though too, it's I mean, for my purpose, those are things you hear like, oh, a coach is great to hold you accountable. And that sounded almost like a tagline to me. I listen to a lot of podcasts now, and I forget, whose quote it is, but I think it's Chris Williamson from Modern Wisdom or whatever. I think is his name. And it's probably not his, it's probably someone else's, but he says something that did resonate with me. And it's just, that the life you want is in the work you're avoiding. Right. And I think that's the kind of accountability that, you're probably providing to these people, whether they said it or not, or you've noticed or not, I'm not sure. But, I bet that's a big part of it, because we all sort of know what we need to do.
They're afraid.
And it's easy to avoid if no one else is aware, right? You're the only one doing the tax return, right? And everybody else out there thinks you've got it under control. And meanwhile, you just don't pay your taxes. You don't do your return.
Many. So I travel once a quarter. I was part of a coaching organization that I was actually working for them, and loved them. I loved coaching. I was in a room of 75 business owners, 75 to 100 business owners every quarter, anywhere between 1 million to 40 million in revenue.
It's real business.
And and the businesses are real. The problems are real. They were bringing their staff there. And so being able to coach, do actual work sessions with them, I have completely branched out on my own at this time. We are still very amicable. I hope and anticipate if they hear this that I can still come and continue to speak on their behalf and through their organization. But my number one thing that I see with businesses is that most businesses don't even know how to read their financials.
Yeah, I would agree. I'm almost ashamed to say this to some extent too. I bet I didn't get really into the financials of the business until maybe just, 3 or 4 years ago, and really into it in the last probably just 2.
Yeah.
You always work harder, make more money. There's another saying I think is funny. It's like, when you're raising your kids, you gotta teach them 1 or 2 things, either how to balance a checkbook or make so much money they never need to know.
Right.
And I sort of live by the latter. I could always work harder, burn more hours, grow the business more. Well, inevitably, you're going to reach a ceiling. Even if it's not on your own personal level, it's because the economy came down, rates went up, whatever it might be in your particular industry. And at some point, you're not going to be able to run from it forever. And but man, the earlier you learn that stuff,
they always
the
say
better.
A lot of them and a lot of businesses that I work for say, I have cash flow issues. Do you have cash flow issues, or do you actually have a clientele issue, or do you have a margin issue? Like,
you're spending money you didn't.
Leads? Right. What are your expenses? And then most of them can't even give me a full list of their expenses. They have QuickBooks. They think that they're doing all the things right. And realistically, when I come in, we go all the way to the beginning. We are not the first thing that we're looking at. Obviously, if financials are an issue, we do tackle that to see where we can stop the bleeding, number one. But then we are breaking it all the way down to the very beginning. What does your company stand for? What do people need to know about your company?
Yeah.
If you have staff, what does your staff know about your core values? What do they know about the type of owner that you are? What type of company are you portraying to your community? How involved in your community are you? Because my clients are nationwide. They're not just here. So a lot of Zoom calls, a lot of on-sites. I do on-site visits. They obviously pay for that extra. I speak at events. I am one to say that, yes, there are a lot of events out there that are a lot of fluff. The events that I typically either host for myself, which are more community driven, I want to help businesses here at a low cost to them to come in and be motivated, be held accountable, but then also to take something away that they can implement directly into their company. Right off the bat.
Well, what's the name of the company, and how does people find it if they're interested in getting coaching?
So my coaching company is called Boss Babe Consulting. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram. I have a website. www.bossbabeconsulting.com, and just reach out. Let's have a free consult and let's see where you are. There's lots of different tier packages that you can pick from. It doesn't have to be overly expensive. Let's just get started somewhere.
Any requirements in terms of like overall gross revenue or anything like that people have to hit to?
No, I will never tell you. No, the first thing that I will tell you is that I do want to see your last month's P&L, and it's only because I want to make sure you can afford me. If you can't afford me, I'm not going to keep taking
That'd be
your
the
money.
first coaching you get.
There's a lot of coaches out there that they really don't care what your P&L
Drain you to
looks like.
zero.
That's
Yeah.
right. They'll take your money every month. That's not what I want to do. If you come to me and I realistically look at it and we're not ready for it, I will take that 1 free hour consult and I'll say, okay, I need you to do X, Y, and Z, and then come back and see me in 30, 60, 90 days, and I will take a look at it again with you. But after that, I do 6 or 12 month contracts.
Well, great. I hope people look you up. I mean, both for E&G for building and remodeling, as well as the Boss Babe Consulting. And I appreciate you coming on. I think it's always informative and good to talk, not just from knowing you and being friends, but just like from a business person to person standpoint. Like it always sort of reinvigorates me a little bit to talk to you. So I keep it up, man. I think you got something there that
I'm
helps a lot of
excited,
people.
and this is like my
I wouldn't be here without you.
No, that's not true. That's not true. And I definitely wouldn't be here without you. So here's I want to have you back on my podcast, but I want to tailor it around. I've had multiple people ask me about how AI is intertwining into their companies.
Mm-hmm.
And I would like to just do a 20-minute episode with you on like, what does that look like moving forward for title and deed? Like, are we looking at possibly having AI join the crew?
I've got a few areas to talk about. We're already using it for certain things.
Yeah, I would love it. I think
sure.
I'm going to do like little short clips.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to get a couple businesses that I think let's talk about. Is it good or is it bad? So there's your personal invite to come back. I'd love to have you.
Will do. Definitely. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. That's it for today's episode of No Quit. If you're still showing up, still building, still fighting, I see you. Subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts and join me for more behind the scenes lessons on what it takes to keep going when most people would walk away. And remember, success isn't about getting it perfect. It's about not giving up.